Hello and welcome to the Paranormal Nut Podcast. You know me, I'm Sean, and that's Jim. And with us today, we have Ray, who is a psychic, and we are going to dive into what that means. And I think Ray's got some personal stories for us. Thanks for coming on the show, Ray.
Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it.
So I guess we'll start off. Obviously, being a psychic, you found out one way or another, or maybe it was a bunch of little things, but generally, what got you into the paranormal generally?
I would have to say it definitely would be my religious upbringing. I was actually, ironically enough, I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness as a child growing up. So we were always taught, that there is a spirit world. They have, of course, some different beliefs about as far as like when people die, where they go, where they don't go, and stuff like that. That's a kind of like long story. But there's, of course, things that believe in God, in angels, and demons, and Satan, of course. So I always grew up understanding, at least believing in it and understanding what the spirit world was, that there is a spirit realm, a supernatural spirit realm, and that these beings exist and live. And so for me, it was, I would say, like growing up, understanding that and believing that, but even more so experiencing supernatural things myself is what ultimately got me to have wholeheartedly faith in understanding, believing that there is a spirit world and that these entities, be them good or bad, that they do exist.
Yeah. Well, I mean, can you go into your story about, or one of your stories at least, about getting a glimpse of the spirit realm?
Okay, let me think. I'll try to think. One of the earliest ones I had actually was when I was little, about 7 years old. And it was ironically funny enough because I just came from a friend's house who happens to live in this neighborhood where one of my cousins, my aunt and uncle, and then therefore my 4 cousins lived in this house. And it's a pretty typical suburban neighborhood that they lived in. And I would say
those are the ones I don't trust. Those are the ones I trust.
Yeah. When you look at it, it's a pretty normal, typical suburbia neighborhood. You wouldn't think anything of it. The houses, it was a tract home. So like lots of the homes look like, every other house looks like the other one next to it. And we were little, and I remember I would go and I would stay with, I had 2 cousins, 2 boys, 2 girls. The youngest, Nicole and Lynette, they had a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. And pretty much when you came into the house, there was a long hallway which led to the shared bathroom. And then my aunt and uncle, if you're going down the hallway to the right, the first door on the right is a restroom. And then the next door at the right was the master bedroom where my aunt and uncle were there with their bedroom and their bathroom. And then straight ahead was a door which went into the girls' room, my 2 cousins, Lynette and Nicole. And then if you go on the right-hand side, directly across from the restroom, the main restroom, was a bedroom where my 2 cousins, Jason and Andy, stayed. And that's where I stayed with them. They had a bunk bed. And I remember the first time I saw anything was I was laying down in the bed. And I said the door was pretty much wide open. And you could see straight into the restroom. And so the lights were all off and everything. And the only light that was really illuminating was underneath the restroom door. One of my cousins was in there. He was brushing his teeth, getting ready for bed and stuff. So I'm laying down in the bed. And at the end of the hall, like I said, if you're walking down the hallway straight ahead is my other cousin's, the girls' bedroom. And so, like whenever you're in pitch dark in a hallway, when somebody opens the door and there's light in the doorway, the light kind of almost like comes at an angle and it like will lift up as the door is opening. So when I was laying there, I remember, and I saw this multiple times, when they had opened the door and the light would shine up like this, like right across, I saw the shadow of something go running by. And the first time I saw it, I remember being terrified and creeped out by what I saw. And another time I'd stayed there, like probably a couple months later, the same thing as the light was going up. All of a sudden, it was like it went right by it.
Shadow have a form of anything, or was it just?
Yeah, it did. It was very no. It was a very distinguished, detailed. You could see clear detail of what it was that ran across the
shadow people.
Yeah, and here's the thing: I never told anybody for years what I saw. Now the reason being wasn't because, it wasn't so much like because I said like growing up, even in the religion we believe that Jehovah's Witnesses, they believe in demons and evil spirits too. But what I saw, typically when you think of a demon or evil spirit or even just a ghost in general, you see a human figure. Okay, but what I saw was not human in form at all. So it was like what I had seen. I didn't tell anybody for years because it was one of those things like nobody would believe me even if I told them what I saw. If I were to describe to them what I seen, I was like, there's no point. I didn't even see a point. So I could tell people nobody's going to believe me. So what happened was years and years later, I talked to my cousin. She's also a firm believer in spirits, ghosts, and entities. We were talking about it, and I kind of casually brought up that house because I was curious to gauge her to see if she would say anything. And I said, do you remember that house off Silverado near this little hill called Lion's Head where we used to go ride a bike? And I asked her, I said, speaking of, we're talking about spirits and stuff. And so I happened to mention her. I said, do you remember that house? And she's like, yeah, I remember that house. She's there was a lot of creepy stuff going on there. And so I was like, really? And I said, yeah. And I said, you know what? I used to see stuff there too. I said, but I never said anything to anybody about what I saw. And she's like, what did you see? And so I remember asking her, I said, how about this? Let me ask you this. Would you see different things? She said, well, I would see, she said she would always see the same apparition. And so I asked her, I said, okay, before you say anything, because I want to make sure that, I'm not going to bias your thoughts or anything and vice versa. I said, how about I give you a pad and pencil and I'll draw what I saw and then you draw what you saw. And so we both were sitting there sketching out what we both saw.
Well, we tried to do it.
Yeah. Yes, because I wanted to rule out, I even as somebody as a believer, when people ask me to go look at their homes, I always go in as a skeptic because you always want to rule out common sense, you know what I mean? And there's been many times where people have asked me to come over to their homes and I was able to rule out, the sound you were hearing was coming from this. It was from that, there was no spiritual stuff,
creaky floors,
Exactly. And so that's why I told my cousin to draw a picture of it. We both did. And we turned around. We both drew the exact same thing. And that's when I knew for a fact, like, what I saw was what I saw.
Yeah. And I think I have to cut in and ask at this point, and I'm sure Jim's dying to know too. What did this thing look like?
I could send you actual little pictures too of some little things. It was no bigger than, I would say, no bigger than a foot tall. And it had a very furry, spiny hair on it. And you could see the details of it and stuff. And growing up, even for years, until I did further investigation, my godmother, who taught me most of what I know about my psychic ability, helped me develop them, she told me what it was and explained to me what it was. And it wasn't until I went and actually did some research and looking online to look, and I actually found these little figurines.
Is it a bonzone? A bonzone. It's like a little ghost, or it's a little like being that actually in Hmong mythology that they kidnap little kids and carry them off into the woods. It's like a type of demon spirit. Okay.
No, this was actually a good spirit. Actually, yes, actually, by definition, that's one of the other things that I teach about the spirit world and different spirits is they're actually a type of troll, a little trolls actually. In Mexico and South and Central and South America, there's a word they refer to them. They call them duendes, and that's what they refer to is they're fairies or elves. They're a type of fairy or elf and stuff. Yeah. And so there's different species of them too.
It's always strange when you go cross culturally. There's always an analog for almost every kind of spirit, creature, or entity, whether it's the duendes or or
Duendes, yeah.
dwarfs or fairies or
Leprechaun.
or
Yeah, exactly.
the fey spirits, and it's really interesting. So you're saying this house had a duende at least transiting through it.
Yes.
And then you didn't find out what it was till you talked to your grandmother. So your grandmother knew about these things? Is something that...
That's my godmother, yeah.
Oh, sorry, God.
It's my godmother, yeah, my godmother, yeah. She's the one who taught me about, like, she's my spiritual godmother. She taught me how to tap into my gifts a lot more better. And she even taught me this ability, which I could talk to you guys about later, to tell a story about it. It's a psychic ability called walking. Not to be confused with astral projection. People assume that's a band, but it's not. No, it's not. It's like it in a sense. It's very similar to it, and it sounds like it, but it's very different. Again, I would have to go into detail about it a little bit later with you guys, but she taught me a technique. It's called walking. But it's kind of almost the same. Like, you ever heard that phrase, to be a fly on the wall? Well, it basically teaches you how to kind of be a fly on the wall, to go and tap into people's memories about certain things. And you actually are able to walk through their memories and see it as if you were there in the room with them.
Okay, so that's almost closer to not astral projection, but remote viewing.
Yeah, or clairvoyance, so kind of something along that. Yeah, something kind of along the lines of that. Yeah.
My mom, my brother and I had to do astral projection. Like,
oh, she did.
Yeah, my mom's a very deep, spiritual. I wouldn't say psychic, but she's dealt with demons in houses before, done multiple exorcisms and stuff like that. And she would always, me and my brother would wake up and we'd have like these tears, and she would just explain things to us. And then she's like, "You're special. You can do this." And she would go on and like teach us how to do it better. And and the dangers of it.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Back when you said that you were afraid to talk about it when you were young, like people wouldn't believe you. And that's kind of, a bit of the MO of these, interviews we're doing, because, I'm not here to judge whether people are, wrong, right, true, false, but people have a story they want to tell because that's how they saw it and that's true to them. And that's what I want to know. Because even there has to be some connective thread to me. And through all of these stories of things going on, and I'm glad you're sharing us yours. So being spiritually sensitive or being clairvoyant or a walker or whatever your terminology may be, how has it like changed your life?
In many ways, like it answered a lot of questions that, like, when I really dug deep into my own abilities, it answered a lot of questions about how it affected things in my personal life. When I learned about one of the abilities that I have is two of them is a precog and an empath. And when I started to do research on like an empath, and there's details about how can you tell, and it's kind of not really a test, but really like symptoms of being an empath. And it tells you things like, for one, you're very in tune to nature. Animals almost are comfortable around you. It could be wild animals, or even you go to a friend's house who has a dog or cat that's never met you, and they seem almost calmed or relaxed around you. They're comfortable with you. Other people, you are always drawn to other people who are going through trauma or are upset, or seem to be drawn to you. You're also drawn to other people with other abilities, also other psychics, other abilities. You almost seem like a magnet. You seem to draw to and surrounded by them. Exactly, yeah. That was one of them. And then many things like I have social anxiety, and it's not just social anxiety, but when I'm in big groups, it's very draining. I could not even do anything physical, just talking. Leaving is very exhausting because you're drained. Your body's soaking up so much energy, so good and bad. When I was do like my card readings, because I'm a tarot card reader as well, before I discovered I was an empath, I got into tarot card reading, and there were times when I would do readings, and if, like, I wouldn't say a negative reading, but just whoever I did the reading for happened to be going through some very, traumatic things, either losing somebody, or they're dealing with many relationship problems, finance problems and stuff, and all the stress, and whether it be stress, anger, sadness, depression, all those things would hit me very hard, heavily. And sometimes when they would leave, I'd be very down for days. So now that I know what it is and I know how to, in a sense, safely deal with this energy, now I don't get that same feeling anymore. To where it's like somebody would leave and they'd almost leave all that bad energy, and it would just sit there and sulk with me for days or days at a time.
Yeah, I mean, I can hardly deal with my problems. I wouldn't know how to deal with everyone.
Exactly. That's how to deal with other people as well. Like, to feel all that drop on you. And likewise, too, even good energy, when I would have a good positive reading, I could be in a really bad mood or really, depressed mood. And then somebody comes in with very good positive energy and they leave, and all of a sudden I'm feeling better. Like, about that all of a sudden, like.
Yeah. So you noticed that, so go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just moving on here where, you told us about this, I'm going to pronounce the name wrong, this duendes, and you said you saw that frequently at that house.
Yes.
Has entities like that followed you through your life in the various places you lived at, or do you think that was an isolated location?
That was definitely an isolated location. I have never encountered them outside of that. Outside of my own, I take that, well, to some extent. I have this deck of cards. I don't know, have you ever heard of Brian Froud? He's a famous author. He's known for he's an author that an artist that depicts fairies, different types of fairies and goblins. He actually did the artistry work for Labyrinth and Crystal. They got inspiration. Well, that was Jim Henson's studio that did it, but the artwork for these creatures came from Brian Froud. Like, he gave a lot of inspiration for the artwork that they got the inspiration for the different depiction of fairies, goblins. Knows what, like, different types of there's different species of fairies too. That's the thing that most people don't know about, like, fairies. When I tried to explain to them, like, everybody thinks of fairy, they think of Tinkerbell. And I said, well, she's a type of fairy. She's a, fairies are like a species. Think of it like mammals, for example. Like, mammals, we're a mammal, but so are dogs, but so are wolves, and so are deers, but look very different. We all kind of we're very different creatures still, but we're also categorized as mammals. So you have to think of fairies in the same sense. The trolls, pixies, elves, goblins, and even mermaids, they're a type of fairy. They're all a type of fairy. They're just, they look differently because of where they're from, but they're all a type of fairy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there are, in most mythologies, multiple entities, and they're not all good and they're not all evil, and then they kind of sides of everything between.
And goblins are a type of evil fairy, or they're not really evil, they're mischievous type of fairy. They kind of pander off, they live off of pandemonium and chaos. They love creating problems and so on and such. Like,
I need to find this one video, which I think is probably the best video evidence I've seen for a fairy creature, and it's that dwarf that has the sideways walk, and some people were just hanging out late at night on their street, and they look down the street and you can just see this dark figure doing like urban shuffle, which is, I guess, funny for these specific fairies. I really need to pull that up, and maybe one day we can get you back on and we can do a fairy tier list, but a fairy react, because I've seen some pretty convincing footage, which I know with fairies it's rare to get like on footage, because they're some people think they're interdimensional, slipping between and things like that, or just naturally have the ability to obfuscate their appearance. But I've seen, and this is before all the AI stuff, that years and years ago.
Yeah, it was. I know which video you're talking about. Yeah, I seen the video that you're speaking of. I know it because it was filmed on an old cell phone. This is back when text messaging, I think, was one of the newest technologies at the time. You know, like cameras and phones. Yeah, these are old like camera phones when cameras first appeared on cell phones, and a lot of this footage. I actually have some footage too. Also some stuff on YouTube. I want to send to you guys. I'll send you guys also the links to some of these images of where it shows the recordings of little elves actually running, like hiding against the wall, where there were these kids outside playing soccer. It was somewhere in either Mexico or Argentina, and these kids are playing soccer outside, and then one of them stops, and you see the kid actually scream like bloody murder because he sees, and up against the wall you see this little figure like with the little feet just goes running off into the bushes, like, and it's like no bigger than like probably this tall. It is the pointy little hat it's wearing. No, it was outside. They were outside, and you can actually see the little figure running against the wall. And people tried to debunk it. They said the thing about it was filmed on such an old technology phone that to add an image now, it would be extremely hard to alter that footage and make it look real to like as if it was something that. Yeah.
Saw the video before it was like you couldn't.
Before we even had the modern day technology now to even alter it to make it look that realistic. I mean, the kind of editing technology that we had at the time when this film was released was like we didn't even have technology enough to make it look that realistic. It was insane to see this video. Yeah, exactly.
And that's we're big UFO guys, and then there are people who like to say UFOs, fairies, and all those stuff. They're all the same thing, like interdimensional being, fairies.
Yeah.
But you look at that, it's much easier to look at videos from like prior 2010 for UFOs and
exactly,
real or not. But nowadays we have like you can make up anything in a computer.
Oh yeah,
and type in prompts, and it's harder.
It's easier to make fake footage now that's very believable or very realistic to where you can't even tell, okay, is this real footage or is this something that somebody, did in their home, because the way our technology is advanced now.
Yeah. And us as paranormal investigators, we kind of come up to the point where, like, if we got like a full body apparition or a Bigfoot or a UFO on footage, that almost means nothing. Not that we lucky yet.
No, I totally hear where you're coming from, because it's like you could actually be out in the woods with a camera and seeing something like, let's say, Bigfoot with your own eyes there, interact with him. He could pick you up, toss you up. You could be recording it and post it on the internet, and trolls will be out there saying this is fake, it's fake, blah blah.
The guy in a grill.
They'll even the woods. And they'll even make up stories behind it. Oh, we know the person, and they'll post fake pictures of this is the actor that was under the suit. Like they'll even make up fake things like that to discredit you, to completely discredit you.
I won't go into the specific details of this because it's not my story, and I don't want to give it away. But there was something going on in the world in like 2008, 9, 10, and there was a conspiracy theory made about somebody's family that I knew personally, and this I found out. And it's crazy. They like found out where this person's family member lived and tried to say they were on government payroll, and it's like, look, I'm all for not trusting the government, but also, accuse some random person off the street being, some
a puppet or something. You're on,
It's like it's hard. It is a very hard line to draw.
Yeah,
truth and fiction and conspiracy and just genuine curiosity and questioning of the world around. It's the internet for you, baby.
Yeah, but that's why I'm like, it's almost like the good thing about what you guys do, like when you guys go to places and investigate for yourselves, Granted, I mean, there's always going to be people, even like the guys like from Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, like there's people out there that say their stuff is fake, you know what I mean? They're like, I can understand what they deal like to have, what they have to go through to go through it and experience it. But I like, as somebody that is a believer, and I like with the way that the footage that I've seen with these guys, and also, like I said, knowing that ability, how to walk. I've actually gone walking to many of these places myself. like without not physically but spiritually, and I've seen these entities myself to know that what they were seeing was very real and what they filmed was very real.
So what would be, I guess, I don't want to say terrifying, but the most awe-inspiring entity you've encountered in your walks?
Wow. Okay. I would probably say there's two stories that I have. One actually involved a descendant of the Winchester. They're descendants of the Winchester family. And another one, and that was during when I was a Lyft driver where I did a walking session. And the other one would be probably a friend of mine. No, I didn't do a walking session. I went to go help this friend of mine who it was a friend of a friend, actually. I had a friend who passed away, and it was a mutual friend of his. And we, after our friend passed away, we kind of built up a friendship and started talking. And then he happened to notice that I was a tarot card reader, and he asked me, he said, maybe you can help me with something. He thought, there's some kind of evil spirit where I live. And he's telling me, this actually correlates to Jim's story about his personal experience with a demon or entity that's able to manifest physical energy and cause physical things to happen, like on a large scale, on a huge, large scale. And for me, like when I went to, he was renting his home where as a house, and they had a garage, but it was a detached garage. So the garage was detached from the home, and the owners of the home built a studio apartment above the top of this garage. And he said, so he would go up there, and you walk upstairs, as the door opens up, goes upstairs. And he was telling me about that there's something evil in his studio that he lived. And so I said, okay, I could surely come over, and, I want to see what I feel, if I feel anything. And, but before I even had gone over there, he sent me a video, and just another video. I'm going to send you guys a clip of it as well. And on there's EVP on there. You can hear this thing speaking and talking. And he's in the restroom. Yeah. He's in the restroom. And in the video clip, he actually has his phone. He's sitting down on the toilet and he has his phone like on his lap facing up, because he said this thing would talk to him, and he'd see the shadow of it in the vent. Now, the thing about like the ceiling vent in the restrooms, you know how they have the fan that sucks out the steam and the hot air from when you're in the shower? Yeah. So in there, if you ever have opened one, and I have before, because in our restroom, I'll take them out every 6 months to clean it because they get full of dust and stuff. Those vents are only like this tiny. It's a tube, you know what I mean? So it's a tiny tube like this small. You could maybe fit a baby in there at most, not a human body. But he has video footage that he sent me of, you could see the shadow of a head, like a person's face, like inside this vent. Like it's a dark shadow, and you could see its eye, like looking through the vent like this, and it's moving around in this video. And he had
one video like that on the internet, and it's terrifying. And I'm assuming it's probably a similar entity.
And he had another, that was the film, the one that I do have that I'm going to send you guys, was in his restroom, and he has the camera facing up so you could see through. He has the lap, he's filming it upwards as if he's looking at it, because he said he's sitting there and he's staring up at it, and he could see it, and he started recording it. And you could hear certain things. You could hear it speaking. I can hear it better than most people, but that just has to do with my ability, my attunement with it. I'll give you guys the translation, but there was another video that he showed me of the same spirit in the house, but it was a different part of the house, right when you walk up to the landing on the top of the stairs when you walk up the stairs to get to the studio. Right at the landing, there's another air vent that's an air conditioning vent, but this is a smaller one. Now, there's different air conditioning vents. Some of them that have the ones that you can pull the little bars, and the little flaps will move in and out. And then there's certain ones that are just stiff. It has the vents in them, but they're stiff. They don't rotate at all. They're just like, completely stiff. So this particular vent was a small, tiny little rectangular one that did not have the little flaps in it. So the vents were stiff. And those things are hard. They're metal, So in the video, you can see this entity. You can see its eye, and its eye was whited out, almost like a zombie, but you could still see the pupil, and you could see it like the eyes like looking around. And the vents, you could actually see them bending as if somebody has a finger. They're using their finger and opening in them like this. The vents are actually bending and bending back, and the eye is like moving around through the opening in the vent. You can see it moving on. Yes. And I was like, when he showed me this, and I was like, those vents are bending. Like somebody's like using their finger and bending them open. Like I've never seen an evil entity that's been able to manifest energy in our world to be actually cause physical things, like with Jim's story when he was talking about his mother with the when she's carrying the pig, and to do something like that to cause this. I mean, this entity has to have some very strong powers.
Oh yeah, you need to go to Stephen King, sir, and give him these ideas.
Yeah,
it almost sounds like it, like you know how it could like go through different areas and could like transform like. That's that.
Yeah.
I can't imagine seeing that. That freaked me the hell out.
Yeah.
Well,
I wish I've been trying to get a hold of him again to send me that clip, because the other clip isn't quite as clear. It's a little fuzzy to see, but you can still. But the EVP on it, definitely, I want you guys to hear the EVP on it. And I'm curious to see if you guys can make out what it's saying, what I heard. But I'll send the footage to you because it's really late.
Yeah,
I want to test it. I'm curious to see if you can hear.
Yeah, definitely. I want to thank you for taking this interview, talking with us, sharing your experience. And
awesome, guys. Thank you. No, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate you giving me time to like tell my story. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think we could probably definitely have you back on sometime. We'll just figure out a schedule.
Yeah, definitely. I got many more stories. Like I'll tell you about the Winchester story. That one was definitely like, wow. That was different because that doesn't.
It's about the Winchester.
Yeah. That was and that one. Oh, I haven't seen that. I want to check that one out. This one was like it was a walking. I was doing a walking session was a passenger when I was a Lyft driver. It wasn't even the person himself. He was a friend of he said one of my buddies, they're descendants of the Winchester family. And he talked about this curse that the family has on them. I said, I heard about this curse, but I've never seen anything in the media about the new current family stuff. And he explained to me what happened. And another time I'll get into detail because it's kind of a little bit more of a longer story, but it wasn't, what I saw wasn't really an entity of so much as a strange phenomenon of what I saw. So it was very, very, and that one creeped me out. That one also definitely shook me to my core. Who didn't see that? When
There's our cliffhanger and our vote for our next interview.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Awesome.
Thank you all for coming out to the Paranormal Podcast interviews. I'm Sean, that's Jim. Special thanks to Ray. And
thank you guys.
Stay tuned, guys.